भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 1, The Advent of Lord Krishna, Introduction, Text 29 to 32. So text 29 and 30 doesn't have a purport. So I'll read the shloka and the translation, and we will recite text 32 together. Text 29. तस्यां तु कर्हि चिच्छौरीर्वासुदेव कृतोद्वहः देवक्या सूर्यया साधं प्रयाणे रथम् आरुहत्. Translation. Some time ago, Vasudeva, who belonged to the demigod family or to the Shura dynasty, married Devaki. After the marriage, he mounted his chariot to return home with his newly married wife. Text 30. Ugrasena sutah kamsah swasuh priyachakirshaya rashmin hayanam jagraha rokmai ratha shatair vrutaha. Translation. Kamsa, the son of King Ugrasen, in order to please his sister Devaki on the occasion of her marriage, took charge of the reins of the horses and became the chariot driver. He was surrounded by hundreds of golden chariots. So text 31 and 32 are combined. So I'll read 31 and then 32 we can recite together. But while doing the word to word, we'll do both 31 and 32. So 31 is Chatushatam paribarham gajanam hema malinam ashvanam ayutam sardham rathanam cha trishatshatam. Okay, so we'll do 31, 32 together. Please repeat after me. Chatushatam paribarham gajanam hemamalinam ashvanam ayutam sardham rathanam trishatshatam dasinam sukumarinam dve shate samalankrite duhitre devakaha pradat yane duhitravatsalah dasinam sukumarinam dveshate samalankrite duhitre devakah pradat yane duhitravatsalah. Chatushatam 400. Paribarham dowry. Gajanam of elephants. Hemamalinam decorated with garlands of gold. Ashvanam of horses. Ayutam 10,000. Sardham along with. Rathanam of chariots. Cha and. Trishatam 3 times 600. 1800. Dasinam of maid servants. Sukumarinam very young and beautiful unmarried girls. Dve 2. Shate 100. Samalankrite fully decorated with ornaments. Duhitre onto his daughter. Devakaha King Devaka. Pradat gave as a gift. Yane while going away. Duhitravatsalah, who was very fond of his daughter Devaki. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Pandracharya Viscon. Translation. Devaki's father, King Devak, was very much affectionate to his daughter. Therefore, while she and her husband were leaving home, he gave her a dowry of 400 elephants, nicely decorated with golden garlands. He also gave 10,000 horses, 1,800 chariots, and 200 very beautiful young maidservants, fully decorated with ornaments. Purport. The system of giving a dowry to one's daughter has existed in Vedic civilization from a very long time. Even today, following the same system, a father who has money will give his daughter an opulent dowry. A daughter would never inherit the property of her father, and therefore an affectionate father, during the marriage of his daughter, would give her as much as possible. A dowry, therefore, is never illegal according to the Vedic system. Here, of course, the gift offered as a dowry by Devaka to Devaki was not ordinary. Because Devaka was a king, he gave a dowry quite suitable to his royal position. Even an ordinary man, especially a high-class Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, is supposed to give his daughter a liberal dowry. Immediately after the marriage, the daughter goes to her husband's house, and it is also a custom for the brother of the bride to accompany his sister and brother-in-law to exhibit affection for her. This system was followed by Kamsa. These are all old customs in the society of Varnashrama Dharma, which is now wrongly designated as Hindu. These long-standing customs are nicely described here. दासिनां सुकुमारिणां द्वेषते समलंकृते दुहित्रे देवकप्रादात् याने दुहित्रवत्सलः. Devaki's father, King Devaka, was very much affectionate to his daughter. Therefore, while she and her husband were leaving home, he gave her a dowry of 400 elephants nicely decorated with golden garlands. He also gave 10,000 horses, 1,800 chariots, and 200 very beautiful young maidservants, fully decorated with ornaments. So we are continuing our discussion on this chapter of 10th canto. And Shukdev Goswami is now describing the appearance of Krishna, the Supreme Lord. And these verses are a prelude or are the starting points of the Lord's appearance. So in the previous text, we saw that the glories of Mathura was mentioned, and it is also mentioned that Mathura is intimately connected with Krishna. And how did it happen that Krishna was born in Mathura? So those aspects are covered in this text 29, 30, 31 and 32. So these are some customs which are mentioned here. So 29 speaks about Vasudev. An introduction of Vasudev is given, although we have already discussed about Vasudev in the 9th canto, 24th chapter. And it's mentioned that after his marriage to Devaki, he mounted his chariot and started to go home with his newly married wife. And Kamsa took the reins of the chariot, and he was surrounded by hundreds of golden chariots. And King Devak, he gave significant dowry to Devaki because he was very affectionate towards her. So in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have already discussed about Vasudev and his wives, such that I'll just read the translation so that we can understand. It's in Shastra, it's mentioned that Vasudev had 18 wives and he had many sons from all of them. So in text in Canto 9, this is chapter 24, text 46. So Shukdev Goswami says, Vasudev, this text 46, Vasudev, by the womb of his wife Rohini, begot sons such as Bala, who is Balaram, Gada, Sharana, Durmada, Vipula, Dhruva, Krita, and others. Next he says, from the womb of Pauravi, who is another wife of Vasudev, came 12 sons, including Bhuta, Subhadra, Bhadrabahu, Durmada, and Bhadra. Nanda, Upananda, Kritaka, Shura, and others were born from the womb of Madira. Bhadra, Kaushalya, gave birth to only one son named Keshi. Vasudeva, by another of his wives, whose name was Rochana, begot Hasta, Hemangada, and other sons. And by his wife, named Ila, he begot sons headed by Uruvalka, all of whom were chief personalities in the dynasty of Yadu. From the womb of Dhritadeva, one of the wives of Vasudeva, came a son named Viprashtha. The sons of Shantideva, another wife of Vasudeva, were Prashama, Prasita, and others. Vasudeva also had a wife named Upadeva, from whom came 10 sons, headed by Rajanya, Kalpa, and Varsha. From Srideva, another wife, came 6 sons, such as Vasu, Hamsa, and Suvamsha. By the semen of Vasudeva, in the womb of Devarakshita, 9 sons were born, headed by Gada. Vasudeva, who was religion personified, also had a wife named Sahadeva, by whose womb he begot 8 sons, headed by Shruta and Pravara. The 8 sons born of Sahadeva, such as Pravara and Shruta, were exact incarnations of the 8 Vasus in the heavenly planets. Vasudeva also begot 8 highly qualified sons through the womb of Devaki. These included Kirtiman, Sushena, Bhadrasena, Ju, Sammardana, Bhadra, and Shankarshana, the controller and serpent incarnation. The 8th son was the supreme personality of Godhead himself, Krishna. The highly fortunate Subhadra, the one daughter, was your grandmother. And then he continues like this. So Vasudeva married 18 wives, and in this particular instance that we read now, it's from chapter 24, around 12 to 13 wives and their children are mentioned. But in Padma Purana, their other wives are also mentioned, and their children are also mentioned along with that. And while trying to find out more details about the marriage ceremony which happened between Vasudeva and Devaki, so I came upon a small section in Mahabharata, which is it's in Drona Parva, and this happens when Abhimanyu has been killed, and Arjuna has taken a vow that he will vanquish or he will destroy Jayadratha by the end of next day. Before the Suryasta happens, the next day, he will kill Jayadratha. So in the morning, then Drona makes his formation. This is Drona Parva. So Bhishma is already laid down on the bed of arrows, and Drona is the commander-in-chief. So he creates a vyuha, and then Pandavas also create a vyuha. But the vyuha which Drona has created is quite complicated to pass through. But anyways, Arjuna and Krishna, they go together and they pass through and they fight many warriors in between. So at that point, the in charge, actually Drona has devised a plan that because Arjuna will be busy in fighting somewhere else, or rather he should be dragged somewhere else in the battlefield, so that Yudhishthir can be captured. Will not kill Yudhishthir, will not make an attempt to kill Yudhishthir, but will capture him. And that way, when the enemy king is captured, the war automatically is complete. It's automatically over. And that way, Yudhishthir will live. And we can also gain the kingdom. So this was Drona's plan. So on one side, Arjuna is going towards Jayadratha to kill him. But that opens up the protection of Maharaj Yudhishthir. So Arjuna and Krishna, they specifically assign Satyaki, Bhima, and Drishtadyumna as the protector of Maharaj Yudhishthir. And then there are several details where the fight happens and Arjuna moves forward. But after certain time, after afternoon has passed, then Yudhishthir Maharaj could not hear either Krishna's Panchajanya blowing off his conch or Arjuna's Gandiva bow. So you can understand such a big battlefield, but the conch which Krishna used to blow was audible till the end of the battlefield, and even the twanging of Gandiva bow was audible to Maharaj Yudhishthir. But he could not hear for a long time because of so many noises and this and that. So he asked Satyaki to move forward and help Arjuna. because he may be in danger, because all the concentration, the whole focus and concentration of the entire Pandava army was on Arjuna. And Drona's concentration was on Yudhishthir. Okay, so he did not participate much. So when this happened, then Satyaki, he was unwilling to go, but then because Yudhishthir Maharaj is asking him to go, so follow the order of an elder, he went forward. And when he came forward, then Drona attacked him, and there was a a fight between Satyaki and Drona. And this moment, Drona was actually defeated by Satyaki, and then Satyaki moved forward. And then Karna came, and Karna was also defeated by Satyaki. And after that, then Duryodhan came, and Duryodhan at this point has been invested with this impenetrable armor by Dronacharya. Okay, because Duryodhana was fighting with Arjuna to trying to stop him, but Arjuna completely overwhelmed Duryodhan. So Duryodhan went to Drona and lamented that I am not able to stop Arjuna. So Dronacharya gave him an impenetrable armor, an armor which was used by Indra in his fight during Vritrasura. So Dronacharya had got that mantra to invest that Shakti on Duryodhan so that his armor becomes impenetrable. And so then after that, Duryodhana fights with Arjuna, and Arjuna is able to surpass him. So details are there. I'll not spoil those. Okay. And after that, then this Duryodhana, he comes and he fights with Satyaki also. And Satyaki was also able to overwhelm Duryodhana. He was able to defeat him and go forward. And the way he did was, whenever these warriors fight, they don't fight with bare hands. They have the leather gloves that they wear during their fight. So although Duryodhana had his impenetrable armor, but his gloves were not impenetrable. Okay, so Satyaki, he shot exactly arrows at his gloves, and we are talking about a distance of a huge gap between these two warriors. But then they were so sharp, they were so talented and skillful that Satyaki shot arrows at Duryodhana's gloves, and Duryodhana's gloves became open. It came out, and then he shot arrows at Duryodhana's hands, his palms. And then it was very painful for him. And that way, he was able to defeat Duryodhana also. Like that, Satyaki defeated several warriors on his way towards Arjuna. And finally, he came to fight with Bhurishrava. Okay, this Bhurishrava is the son of Somadatta, who is the son of Bahalik. Now, Bahalik, if you remember, was the brother of Shantanu, the elder brother of Shantanu. And Bahalik's son was Somadatta, and Somadatta's son was Satyaki. Sorry, Somadatta's son was Bhurishrava. Okay. And Satyaki had a fight with Bhurishrava. But this time, Bhurishrava was very easily able to defeat Satyaki, and he was about to kill him. So now, if you understand from the context of Mahabharata, then this whole episode is being narrated by Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra. Right? So Dhritarashtra was amazed. He said, see, Satyaki is such a powerful warrior who has been trained by Arjuna himself. He has been trained by Krishna. And then he is the one who gave training to Abhimanyu, who was such a chivalrous warrior. But how is it that Satyaki was able to defeat even Dronacharya and Karna and all other great warriors, but he was not able to fight with Bhurishrava? So at that time, Sanjay recites the story of Devaki Swayamvar. Okay, and he says that Devaki Swayamvar was held, by Maharaj Devak. And that time, Somadatta had come to participate in that Swayamvar. And Vasudeva did not come personally in that Swayamvar, but Vasudeva's friend. In some places it's mentioned that Vasudeva's brother, or in some places mentioned Vasudeva's friend, but a personality named Shini came to Devaki Swayamvar. Shini. So this is similar to how Bhishma, he, in the Swayamvar of Amba, Ambika and Ambalika, he himself came, although he was desiring these three girls for his brother Vichitravirya. So it's similar to that. So Shini came on behalf of Vasudeva, and he was able to defeat all the kings. And then he won over Devaki for his brother or for his friend Vasudeva. So Somadatta was not very happy with that, the way Shini had come and he has taken over, encroached upon Devaki like this for somebody else. So Shini and Somadatta got into a fight. And at that time, Shini actually grabbed the hair of Somadatta and he kicked him in his chest, and his head, in front of thousands of warriors who were there. So Somadatta became very ashamed of that. And Shini said, okay, I will not kill you. Out of compassion, he just left Somadatta there. So Somadatta could not tolerate that humiliation. So what he did was, he did tapasya to Lord Shiva, to Mahadev, and then he got a benediction from him that his descendant, his son, will similarly humiliate the descendant of Shini. Okay, just like Shini has humiliated Somadatta by kicking him on his chest, similarly, his descendant, his son, Somadatta's son, will similarly humiliate Shini's descendant. Okay, so that happened to pass, and so this was what has happened during Vasudeva and Devaki's Swayamvar, and Shini's descendant was Satyaki. Okay, and Satyaki was similarly humiliated by Bhurishrava because of the benediction of Lord Shiva. So Bhurishrava is the son of Somadatta, and Bhurishrava was similarly able to, hold the head of Satyaki and was able to kick him in front of thousands of warriors. Anyway, it's a side story, but then it has some relation to what happened during Vasudeva and Devaki Swayamvar. Apart from that, in the Shastra, not much is mentioned about Devaki Swayamvar and Vasudeva and Devaki's marriage. Okay, so this is some small story. And moving on in this purport, Srila Prabhupada specifically writes about this concept of dowry. So I thought we'll just discuss what exactly this dowry is and how it is understood nowadays and how it was before. Srila Prabhupada gives a very good understanding of what we should have here. And according to, see this concept of Manu's dowry is specifically mentioned in Manu Samhita. So in Manu Samhita, I think in the 3rd chapter, this thing comes up that the duties of a householder. So this is the topic, this is the chapter, and within that, then several details are mentioned. After the higher 3 varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas have completed their education, then they get into this Grihastha ashram. And there, the duties that have to be performed are mentioned there. So it's mentioned there that dowry is always voluntary. It is never forced. Whatever the father wants to give to his daughter, he can give. That voluntary was there. And it's a gesture of goodwill. Okay, because he's affectionate towards his daughter, then he gives dowry. He gives some riches, either money or jewels or garments or whatever facilities the daughter may desire, those are given to her. Okay, so it is a gesture of goodwill. It was never enforced or it was never forced. And actually, in Manu Samhita itself, or I think I read it in one of the Prabhupada's purports, it's mentioned that if one is not able to give a dowry, just he's very poor, and if he's not able to give a dowry, at least he should give some fruits as a gesture of goodwill to the bride. And then it goes on like this. So this is the system. Okay, and if you see, this dowry is actually, here if you see, there are 2 things which we can understand. There are 2 aspects of dowry. One is what is mentioned in this text, that when Devaki was living with her husband, then the father Devaka, he gave dowry of 400 elephants, nicely decorated with golden garlands. He gave 10,000 horses, 1,800 chariots. Right. So these are some gifts that Devak gave to Devaki. But then these things are not directly usable by Devaki. Correct? No, she's not going to use 400 elephants or 10,000 horses or 1,800 chariots. These are not directly for her usage. Okay, but then these are given for the family into which the daughter is married. So that is a gesture of goodwill. That is one aspect. And Manu Samhita also speaks about this concept of Stri Dhana. Okay, the dhan or the money or whatever opulence or whatever this money or jewelry and everything that's given to a stree when she goes into another house, goes to her husband's house after marriage. So these are 2 things. One is the gift that is given to the family itself, the husband's family itself, and another is a gift specifically given only to the daughter. And this stridhana, it travels from the daughter to her daughter, and then her daughter and her daughter, like that. So this stridhana is not usable by the husband's family, or he cannot take this stridhana from her. But when there's an emergency, when there's an emergency situation, and she being the protector of her husband, if there's an emergency for the husband and if he's financially not secure at that particular moment, then this stridhana can be used. And then it's the husband's responsibility that he again gives the stridhana back to the daughter, and then it continues through that line. So these are the two aspects of dowry as we understand from Shastra. Okay, and this giving of dowry, the way actually, if you see, there's another related concept to this giving of dowry also comes in the forms of marriage. See, there are 8 forms of marriage which are mentioned in Shastra. Okay, there is this Brahma, there is Deva, Arsha, Prajapatya, then we have Asura, then Gandharva, Rakshasa, and Paishacha. These are the 8 forms, correct? These are the 8 forms of marriage. So, the superiority of one form of marriage depends on how much exchange of money happens between the husband's family and the girl's family. So that is also there. So which means actually the concept of dowry, as explained, is an exchange between either it's a gift. It's a gift. So the husband also gives gift to the wife. The husband's family gives gift to the bride, and the bride's family also give gifts to the husband, his family, and they also give gift to the daughter. So it's an exchange. So both are there. In Brahma marriage, there's the first type, or the superior, or the superlative type of marriage. This the girl or the kanyadan or the girl is given to the husband without any consideration of any monetary exchange. Okay, it's only a pure gesture of goodwill. If the father wants to give something for his daughter, then he will give. And the marriage is arranged such that the husband or the boy is selected purely on his own merits. There's no consideration of exchange. He's selected purely on his own merits, which means if he's virtuous, if he's dharmic, if he's a pure devotee of the Lord, if he's an exalted personality, then the girl is given to him. So that's called as Brahma marriage. And the marriage setup is done by the parents. So the girl and the boy, they do not come in contact with each other. They do not choose themselves. Then in the second one is this Deva type of Daiva marriage. In Daiva marriage, the girl is given to the priest who is performing sacrifice for the father. Okay, so now here, it might look, or it may look as if the father is giving the daughter as charity because he has performed a sacrifice for him. Okay, so there's little amount of exchange that comes into picture. Although Manu Samhita specifically says that should not be the consideration, but still, practically speaking, there is that exchange that happens. Okay, so therefore it is not as exalted as a Brahma type of marriage. It's one level down. Then the next is Arsha. So in Arsha type of marriage, then the groom has to give one cow and one bull to the daughter's family, his father, and then in exchange, then he gets the daughter. Okay, so again, it's one level down. Then there is Prajapatya, and in Prajapatya, the girl herself decides that she wants to get married to a particular person. There is this desire, and then there's an exchange also. So therefore, it's another one level down. Then there is this Prajapatya. We have Rakshasa, right? No, not Rakshasa. What is that? Asura marriage. And Asura marriage, there's a very specific consideration that only when the groom gives money or dowry to the bride's father, then only he can get married to her. So that is the sort of exchange there happens. So it's again one level further down because it's very specific. And then we have Rakshasa type of marriage where we have Gandharva type of marriage. Yes, sixth one is Gandharva. So in Gandharva marriage, there's no consideration of any gift or anything. It's only purely based on the attraction between the boy and the girl. So therefore, it's even more grosser. So that way, this type of marriage is also sanctioned, but then it is not the highest type of marriage on the level of marriages. Then we have this Rakshasa type of marriage where the girl is kidnapped. Her relatives are crying, they don't want her to be kidnapped, but then she's kidnapped and then she's taken away. And this is very common amongst Kshatriyas. So Arjuna did that, Krishna himself did when it came to Rukmini, when he got married to Rukmini, like this. Then Paishacha is when the girl herself is not aware, either she's unconscious or whether she's sleeping, and she herself is not aware, but the boy comes and then he kidnaps her and then goes. So it starts from the very pure type of marriage, a Brahma marriage, and then it goes down to this Paishacha marriage. And only in Brahma marriage, there is no consideration of giving or acceptance of this dowry. But then beyond that, whatever happens, everywhere there's an exchange of dowry. And anyways, in Rakshasa and Vaishacha marriage and Gandharva marriages, it is done because it although it's sanctioned, it resorts to the base desires or material desires of both the boy and the girl, like this. So these are the 8 types of marriages which are mentioned, and dowry is given in all of them. Rather, in the Brahma type of marriage, just a pure gesture of goodwill. But in other types of marriages, then there is this understanding of some exchange, that you are doing something for me, I am doing something for you. So therefore, they are considered as lower. So this is the way this dowry system works according to Vedic scriptures. And here we see when King Devak, he gave dowry to Vasudev, it is on the level of this Rakshasa type of marriage, because Devaki, was won over by Shini. And then Devaki was then given to Vasudev, but still there is an exchange of this dowry. But then this type of marriage is sanctioned, it's proper, because Vasudeva was a very qualified person. Okay, and if I remember correctly, either Narad Muni or yes, in Garga Samhita it is mentioned that Narad Muni comes, and then when Devaki was won over by Shini for Vasudev, then Narad Muni comes and then he gives Santvana, or he gives he pacifies. He pacifies Devak that Vasudeva, the son of Shurasen, is extremely qualified. So therefore, this type of marriage that has happened is nothing. There is nothing wrong with that. So actually, Vasudeva is so qualified that Brahma type of marriage is also applicable at this particular place, because he is qualified and you can give your daughter to him. So therefore, when Devaka understood that, then out of goodwill, out of his pure goodwill, he gave this dowry to Devaki. All these things that we discussed here. So, and Srila Prabhupada, when he writes in the purport here that a daughter would never inherit the property of her father, and therefore an affectionate father during the marriage of his daughter would give her as much as possible. A dowry therefore is never illegal according to the Vedic system. Here, of course, the gift offered as dowry by Devaka to Devaki was not ordinary, and because he was the king, he gave a very opulent dowry, like this. So, Srila Prabhupada writes here, right, the daughter would never inherit the property of her father. Right, so this was a system. This was a system as given in Dharma Shastra, that the daughter would never inherit the property of her father, because once she's married, then she moves from that family. When Kanyadan, when charity is given, we speak of marriage as Kanyadan or Pani Grahana. Kanyadan, when the father does the Kanyadan, it's like it is given in charity. She is given in charity. So there is no concept of her again coming back or taking, or claiming her right to any property or anything that the father has. She's already been given to her husband. And one more thing that we should understand is that, as Shastra says in Manu Samhita also, then Prabhupada himself writes that girls should never be independent, or women should never be independent. They are under the protection of her father before marriage. And after her marriage, then she comes under the protection of her husband. And after her husband takes on Vanaprastha or he passes away, then she comes under the protection of her sons. So she actually does not have to have any rights on any property of her father. So when we speak about the gesture of goodwill on the father's behalf, when the girl is married, it's like she does not have any claim to any of the property that the father has. So these gifts, opulent gifts, are given to the daughter when she gets married. But the system is changed now when we speak about this contemporary situation, this modern situation. Now that a law was passed in 1956, which makes it illegal for the daughters also to inherit the property of the father. Okay, in terms of bringing the equal rights. And the reason for that, this law was passed when Nehru was the Prime Minister, and he did that for his daughter Indira Gandhi. Okay, because whatever he has, he did not have a son, so he had to pass on whatever property he has to Indira Gandhi, and for that purpose, he pushed on this rule where the daughters also become inheritors of the father's property. But then because the daughter is married to someone else, then basically the property of the daughter's father is divided to the other side. It goes to the husband side also. And that way he's put into pressure. The sons do not have much land to cultivate on. Actually, this reform was brought in by British. What had happened was the system of dowry was there. It's sanctioned in the Shastra. It's there in Manu Samhita also. And it was a gesture of pure goodwill. So both these things used to happen. The gifts used to be exchanged between the husbands, between the boy's family and the girl's family. And it was never demanded amongst themselves. And similarly, Stridhan was also given to the daughter. But the Britishers were in this mood of colonialization. So they used to create colonies. They used to go and invade other countries, make colonies for them, and that costed money. That costed resources. Lots of resources were spent for that. So those regions or those countries or those areas which they have colonized, they wanted to get revenue from there. So to generate revenue from there, they had to impose taxes. And to impose taxes because specifically for India, it was an agricultural based community for a major portion, and still it is. So the easiest way to generate revenue is by imposing taxes on land. I'm speaking this in a very brief manner, but just to understand the concept. So they brought in the system of zamindari system, and this another system called as Raitwari system, which they brought in. So in zamindar system, the land was not in anybody's ownership. The title was not given to a particular person, to a particular farmer. It's just that the land was there and it was controlled by the zamindar, and whatever produce was generated, then out of it, the taxes were generated on 30%, 25%, whatever. It was 30% when the crops yielded good. It was 25% or 20% when there is famine, when the crops are not yielding properly. So then it was given to the Britishers through the zamindar. So zamindar became the head of the entire land. So he will have land control of almost 20,000, 30,000 acres. And he will have the zamindari system there. And the revenue was generated or the revenue was collected such that irrespective of whether the crop has come up properly or whether because of famine the crop is less or whatever, the same amount of revenue has to be paid to the Britishers. And the second type of system which they used is called as Raitwari system, where there is no zamindar, but the farmer who was tilling that particular land, he is given ownership of that land, which makes him obligated to pay revenue to the Britishers like this. So when he has certain set of land, and then he is supposed to pay revenue, and this revenue was such that it's a fixed amount. It's called as a land settlement. This whole act is called as land settlement. It's a fixed amount, and this fixed amount was to be paid twice in a year. So when there are seasonal crops, there is this rainy season crops and there is winter crops. So it's monsoon crops and winter crops. So each span for six months. And after the crops is harvested, then he's supposed to give revenue to the government, to the revenue department, the British department. And this revenue is not paid through grains. This revenue has to be paid using coins or gold coins or silver coins or the currency which was prevalent, which was sanctioned by the British, which was the Britishers' way of controlling things. So that kind of currency is the way in which this revenue had to be paid. Now what happened was, because this revenue is fixed, or this lagan, or this particular taxation was fixed, now crops would come up sometimes. And we also have to understand there are several things that as with the progress of Kali Yuga, people's understanding of dharma comes down. So the rains which are required for generating the crops also are haphazard. Sometimes the rain is more, sometimes the rain is less. So resultantly the crops are more, crops are less. But the revenue or the tax which has to be given to the government is the same, irrespective of what has been cultivated. But this was not the system before the Britishers came. When the kings were there, then they used to adjust the revenue or the taxes from them based upon the harvest or based upon how much the crop has yielded. So when this happened, then it put the farmers into a precarious situation where they have to pay the taxes, but then they do not have the means to do so. So one way of generating this revenue or this money was in the form of dowry. So this is actually, I'm paraphrasing this from a book which was written by a scholar called as Veena Talwar, and she has documented this based on the documents that the Britishers have documented for all the system. This is right from 1856 onwards, whatever they have done. So based on her research, this is what she's found out, that the dowry system was done based on the goodwill among people, but then now, because the farmer has been pushed to a corner and he does not have the means to pay, and whenever dowry is given, the dowry is given in gold coins or in jewelry, in the form of jewelry, in the form of things like this. So this became very easy for the farmers to repay or to pay their taxes. So then it triggered a system where the dowry was then demanded. Because I have a son and then I have to pay revenue to the government, therefore the way of easily generating that money is through this dowry system. And by that, now it becomes forced. Okay, so if I have a son, but then my land is not yielding much, if I get him married to a rich family, I can demand lots of dowry. And then the dowry came into picture. And then that resulted into many ill things in the society also. Like this book itself is called as Dowry Murders by Veena Talwar. So she writes like, right, because of this, then the women's position, they are respected in the society during Vedic time, but her position came down only as a means of commodity. And if you see, during Britishers' time, polygamy was not abolished. Polygamy is marrying more than one wife. So polygamy was abolished only after 1956, when this Hindu Rule Act came into picture. Before that, polygamy was still applicable. And just to generate money, a man can get married to many wives, and then he can generate revenue from her. So that way, dowry became forced. And this also resulted in further, it triggered a collapse in the society where this female infanticide increased. Because if a daughter is born in a family, then the pressure is there on that family to give her lots of dowry, or else nobody will get married to her. So that's why when it's understood that if a daughter is born, then you kill her. Otherwise, she will be a big load, a big burden on you. So female infanticide also started after that. Abortion shot up because of these reasons. Okay, so actually this dowry system, now when we contemporarily speak about Vedic culture and other, people will have this concept, oh, sati system was there in Vedic culture, then dowry also came from Vedic culture. But the dowry system as understood in Shastra is completely different. It's completely gesture of goodwill between the boy's family and the girl's family. But the way it has come down, it has been degraded now, it's only because of the concept which is introduced by the British. They have cornered the Indian families, and because of that, this dowry has become an enforced system now. And it has resulted in so many social evils as well. So that's why Srila Prabhupada writes here, a dowry therefore is never illegal according to the Vedic system. Okay, but now it has been made illegal because we are trying to come back, we are trying to reform, so-called reform the society so that these murders can be stopped. But then the whole modern system itself is that people have been made greedy. And if there's an easy way of making money by claiming dowry, then why not go ahead with that? So that way, this system is still going on. But then according to Vedic system, it was never illegal because people were rooted in dharma. People were rooted in dharma, which means that they understood that greed is not good for this life as well as next life. The concept of morality was there, correct? And the affection that a father will have for his daughter also came from following dharma, from proper understanding of the dharmic principles. A daughter was never understood as a commodity who's given, but then the affection was always there. And these are the systems in the Vedic scriptures which are mentioned, that a daughter is given in charity to her husband, and then this is how she moves from one gotra to another gotra, like that. So many systems were there. But then it does not mean that the daughter was considered as someone with whom we should not have any affection for. And even in Srimad Bhagavatam, we have seen, here also we see that Devaka was affectionate towards Devaki. And then when Devahuti was married to Kardama, then Swayambhuva Manu was also affectionate to Devahuti. So like that, there are several instances where affection was there. So she was not considered as a commodity like this. And this dharma, this understanding of etiquette, this understanding of dharma and natural affection also comes from the understanding of dharma only. So because this situates one in happiness. When we have affection based on dharma, then it situates one in sattva guna. Okay, and in sattva guna is the place where happiness is cultivated. Or even this mundane affection is the place where, or a mundane affection also arises. Means material affection is also reaches is so-called perfection, we can say, within this material world when a person is situated in dharma, when a person is situated in sattva guna. But when he's in rajoguna or in tamoguna, then this affection is for one's own selfish needs. And in this particular case, we will see as we go forward that Kamsa affection, he is also showing affection to Devaki. He is also taking the reins of the chariot, and then he's showing himself as if he cares for Devaki. But then this is not with respect to the genuine affection that Devaka had for Devaki. This affection is self-motivated. Now those who are in Rajoguna and Tamoguna, whatever activity they do, it's only for their dambha, only for their pride. For their pride, to show how great they are, how good they are. So even the welfare, even the good, even the etiquettes that they follow, or the goodwill that they show, or all the nice things, the charity that they give, all these things are just to promote themselves as being an exalted personality in terms of other people's eyes. So Kamsa had that understanding. And how do we know this? Because he was expressing such goodwill. He was acting as if he's on the same level as Devaka, doing this for his cousin sister Devaki. But then as soon as it was the Akashvani came that her 8th son will kill him, he suddenly changed because there's nothing for him to gain. He's going to lose his life because of her. So the affection completely turned around. So this kind of affection is primarily because of a person influenced in Tamoguna in the base and then in Rajoguna. But the affection that a father has for her daughter and the goodwill that he shows by giving her dowry, it's basically on the platform of Sattvaguna. And then this is what we see here. So therefore that way dowry was never illegal according to the Vedic system. And Srila Prabhupada further writes here that immediately after the marriage, the daughter goes to her husband's house, and it is also custom for the brother of the bride to accompany his sister and brother-in-law to exhibit affection for her. This system was followed by Kamsa. These are all old customs in the society of Varnashrama Dharma, which is now wrongly designated as Hindu. These long-standing customs are nicely described here. So we discussed this, that these things were there in our Shastra. They are there in the Shastra, the system of dowry, of showing of goodwill. But then it is wrongly designated as Hindu. And if you see, we were speaking about this contemporary situation also. The system of dowry is abolished according to the Hindu Act in 1956. But the Islam, the Muslims are regulated by another set of rules, which is based on the Quran, the Sharia law. And Sharia law still permits the exchange of dowry, of gifts. Okay, so that permission is still there. But for the Hindu society, it is not there. But then the idea that we should understand is that the concept of dowry has been there in India, where we are following this, and actually it has been there in other countries also, in Europe and other parts of this world. That's primarily because the concept came from Shastra only, and when people migrated there, this concept was still followed. But now it's wrongly designated as only Hindu system. So when we speak about, or when in contemporary society, in modern society, we go, and there's a discussion about dowry, specifically the Hindus are targeted. People who claim themselves to be the so-called Hindus, they are the people who are targeted. But then the other communities also have this concept of dowry, and because it is sanctioned by the law, so nobody questions that. But then here, by this 1956, 1961, there was another law which was passed. So therefore, this whole concept of dowry has been desecrated, or it is mentioned as if it's something very evil. All in other communities, it still goes on. And the gesture of goodwill that a father shows for his daughter, and the exchange of gifts, that is applicable according to Vedic culture. But then, because it is banned nowadays, therefore, this is something which we have to. This is our understanding. This is the present situation. We have to understand this properly. So these are some points which I could gather. So I'll stop here. If you have any questions or any comments.